What you young whippersnappers don't understand is that video games used to be futuristic, and I don't just mean they depicted the future. From the first iteration of the TV game played with paddles up until the earliest 3D titles on the PlayStation, video games felt like they'd come from the future. We'd gone through all of human history with the written word, pictures and music. Even the combination of all three in the moving pictures had only been around as long as people could remember. But here was a whole new media, unlike any other. The first interactive media that turned our TVs into worlds of adventure that we could experience directly, as though we were really there. Well, to varying degrees. I'm Bill, and I remember video games about the future when video games were the future. From the PlayStation 2 onwards, video games were mainstream media. They slotted comfortably alongside books and films, no longer this futuristic, bewildering other to be understood and enjoyed by a select few, but just another medium through which art and stories could be appreciated by the masses. This is probably why quite a lot of people on a subconscious level think that retro stops at the PlayStation 2. And I've got a video about that you can add to your watch later list when we're done here. That aside, there's nothing inherently wrong with video games' progression into being just another medium that anyone can enjoy. In fact, it's great. But just as video games became universally enjoyed, they somehow lost some of their futuristic wonder. So for that brief period between the early 70s and Sony's budget console/DVD player hybrid, video games felt like the future. What's more, they made people optimistic about what the future could be. Surely now we can experience interactive fantasy worlds through our televisions. We can't be more than a couple of decades away from flying cars, hoverboards, lasers, and holidays in space with neurotic robots.
We seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life.
With the optimism that came with the medium itself, video games were more than happy to play around in this space. And imagine a near future where science fiction had become science fact. And now we can look back on it with mirth and ask ourselves the question, where did it all go so wrong? What's this internet? Why is my brain chemistry addicted to glorified billboards that make me angry? Where's my goddamn hoverboard? I got the idea for this video playing Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles 4 Turtles in Time. Great game, obviously. You join the Turtles on an adventure through time that covers every single major time in history Americans can comprehend, starting with dinosaurs, then jumping straight to pirates and the Wild West, and then we're done with history. Imagine if this game had been made by Europeans and we could fight our way through the Renaissance. Foot Clan in berets riding mechanical flying contraptions, and painting and skulking around the rooftops, and okay, I don't know anything about the Renaissance that wasn't informed by Assassin's Creed, and neither do you.
I'm not content merely to capture the world. I want to change it.
Oh, Leonardo, I have no doubt you'll go on to do great things.
Music would have been good though. Heavy guitar baroque. All the music in this game is awesome already, but man, that Wild West theme gets me every time. I feel like I'm better at this level than any other just because of how much that music makes me feel and play like a badass. And then, our hero turtles are sucked through a time vortex once again to land in the distant future, the year 2020.
Neon Knight Riders.
5 years ago. Remember that? When we used to ride around on hoverboards in a world that looked almost copyright infringingly similar to F-Zero? F-Zero itself, of course, being set in 2560, which is far more sensible. The Turtles get a pass though, and I'll tell you why. The bulk of this game is set in the year 1992, and it already has lasers, the Technodrome, artificially intelligent robot mice, and freaking time travel. Not to mention all the mutants, which are kind of central to the whole deal. The Turtles have always existed in a reality similar to ours, but a little more sci-fi, so it's not hard to imagine that the New York of the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles was less than 30 years away from hoverboards on long, empty roads suspended above multicolored skyscrapers adorned with giant glass domes. We're never going to get this future because we've designed our cities around cars and let the car industry go mad, and everyone's got to have them, and we will never again have an empty road within 100 miles of any large city to ride around on our hoverboards or anything else. We've got to a place with cars that is completely unsustainable, not just environmentally, but also practically. Because everyone is in cars, we've underinvested in public transport for all but the luckiest of inner city inhabitants. further exacerbating the issue, leading to too much traffic everywhere. So the people who actually have to drive have no choice but to wait forever behind scores of people who would actually be much happier just playing Game Boy on a train for 20 minutes. This idyllic future, imagined by Konami in Turtles in Time, will never happen unless we drastically reduce the number of cars on our roads via massive public investment in our public transport infrastructures. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Auto Duel, a 1985 game set in a dystopian future 5 years from now where the right of way goes to the biggest guns. You'll need a heavily armoured and heavily armed car to survive the outlaw-infested highways and to beat the other auto duelists in the arena. Perfect prediction, no notes, apart from the lack of traffic. Hello if you're watching this in 2030, hope your cyber tank doesn't run out of ammo in the middle of the wastelands. The small personal tank was also predicted in 1996's Metal Slug Super Vehicle 001. The game's set in 2028, and I'm not aware of anything in Metal Slug that couldn't simply happen by then. Technology's there to build a single-person tank if we want to, and someone somewhere probably does. But that aside, is the military hardware in Metal Slug an accurate representation of what's available in the present day, or is it closer to when Metal Slug was first created? To find out, I contacted an expert in modern military hardware. You're an expert in modern military hardware, is that right?
Yes, sir, I am.
So do you think Metal Slug more accurately represents military hardware that's in use today, or that was in use in 1996?
What's Metal Slug?
So Auto Duel and Metal Slug provide fairly realistic, grounded examples of what's probably about to happen in the then near future. But of course not all games are like that. Remember 15 years ago, in the year 2010, when Ken from Street Fighter invented cyberplasm, a substance that made people really strong so they could inhabit other planets, and then turned himself into a cyborg to avenge the death of his lab partner. Street Fighter 2010 is weird as hell, man. That's just the American version, of course. In the Japanese original, it's a whole other guy called Kevin, and there's no reason to call this game Street Fighter anything, except the obvious dollar bills. It's cyborgs and armoured parasite aliens and dimensional gates and all that sort of thing, and this one does not get a pass in the same way the Turtles do because Street Fighter isn't contemporary sci-fi. It's set in regular old 1987, except being able to punch really good basically makes you magic. Some Capcom designers just imagined in the late 80s that it'd take about 20 years to get from super soakers to planet-hopping cyborgs. Yeah, sounds about right. This is such an awful, cynical game though in every way possible. It's so bad. Like, the backflips and the kicks are cool, but it's really clunky trying to hit anything, and the game expects you to be doing some really tight dodging, but doesn't give you the fluidity of movement to do it. The only link to Street Fighter outside of the name is the Target vs Ken screen at the start of each level, and like, yeah, you do spend a fair bit of time in one-on-one fights against these monsters, but like, it's not Street Fighter, is it, Capcom? If anything, what Capcom have made here is a lot more akin to Super Smash Bros. Kevin/Ken has 4 different attack variants: B, down B, forward B, and up B. And he uses these moves in battles against computer-controlled opponents in these little platform arenas. There are scrolling levels for sure, but the boss fights are clearly the main attraction, such that the first level pretty much puts you straight in one. If they just removed the side-scrolling parts and added competitive multiplayer, maybe we'd have had the first platform fighting game on the NES in 1990. With it be called Street Fighter, someone could easily have said, actually maybe we should just make this about the fighting? They were so close to an incredible discovery, but just missed the mark. This game was before Street Fighter 2. Had it been a success, it could have taken Street Fighter in a whole different direction. Fortunately it wasn't, and didn't. But if they'd lent into that fighting pedigree just a little more, and basically invented Super Smash Bros., imagine how different the world could have been. Instead they made a generic, mediocre side-scroller and tried to trick people into buying it. Fortunately it never got a release in Europe, so people on this continent wouldn't hear about it until we got into emulation and started downloading American ROM sets and then looking through the file list and going, there's a Street Fighter game on the NES? Immediately followed by, oh. But with no money having changed hands, so that's fine. Speaking of America, imagine a future where American football was played by robots. Someone's already decided it must be too dangerous for humans, which is why they play wearing armour, but 1988's Cyberball takes it a step further. Set in the year 2022, and you know what? I'm not the person to talk about this one. Why does the game keep stopping? I do something for a few seconds, no idea what, then the game stops and I get this screen where I have to choose like some tactics or something, and then rinse and repeat. There's a ball! Just kick it! Run around and kick the ball until it goes where you want it to go! Why are they always stopping and starting? I found the game frustratingly slow and I couldn't figure out any of what was going on, so this is all the footage you're getting. And I genuinely don't know how much of that was a criticism of cyberball and how much is a criticism of American football. And I don't want to know. The robots do have a cool retro future vibe to them though. And I like a vision of the future that pretty much just involves our most dangerous sports being played by robot avatars. I'm still more interested in watching or taking part in, theoretically, human-based sports, but there's no reason robot sports couldn't exist alongside that. While I'm on the Sega Mega Drive, we can have a look at Outrun 2019, which has a much more depressing vision of the 6 years ago. You all know the original Outrun, right? It's this chill driving game from 1986 where you and your girlfriend get in your convertible, put some tunes on the radio and drive down to the beach. It plays well and Sega's superscalar hardware made some very impressive for the time graphics, but it's the vibes that made it a success. It's just a chilled out good time. So what the hell is this, Sega? Where's my girlfriend? Where's the radio? Why am I driving closed up in a cross between a Cybertruck and the Batmobile through a dark dystopian post-industrial city hellscape? Am I to infer from this that pollution's got so bad I can't have that iconic red convertible? Where are the vibes? Sega in 1993 were pretty pessimistic about where humanity was going. Remember, the original Sonic the Hedgehog games were environmental treatises about nature, represented by Sonic and his pals versus Robotnik's destruction of the planet through industrialization. In Outrun 2019, the luscious beach and forest locales have been replaced with desolate, dark, urban streets. The car's the worst part though. If you're not in a convertible with your girlfriend, are you really playing Outrun? Minerva and I are looking forward to Michael Bay, Jason Rothwell and Sydney Sweeney's film adaptation announced this year. All they have to do is get the vibes spot on and it'll be a hit. So I'm begging you, Jason, my good friend Jason Rothwell, set it in 1986 and not Sega's horrific vision of 2019. I'm not going to be able to put her down for a while, there's just going to be purring on the voiceover now. We're all going to have to live with it. Call it ASMR, but with an 80s rock soundtrack because we're going to talk about Road Blaster. Road Blaster, Laserdisc arcade game from 1985 set in the late 90s. It's a much brighter game for sure, but it still leans into dystopia. You play a vigilante seeking revenge against a biker gang who killed your wife, and you do this by driving really fast and making sure everything but you explodes. All these games about driving in the near future seem to imagine a world just a little more industrial and dark, but basically the same. The technology isn't massively different, just faster. Note that none of these cars hover. The best, most exciting example of a technologically advanced near future is 2000's Perfect Dark by Rare for the Nintendo 64 and set in the distant future of 2023. This is a very late example of the near future sci-fi genre in gaming, and it's got everything. There's an interstellar war going on between two alien races, the Mayans and the Skedar, who have taken their battle to Earth by aligning themselves with two large companies, the Carrington Institute and Datadyne. Maybe this is happening now. Do you have a better explanation for Mark Zuckerberg? I don't. This game's got it all. Alien technology, personal shields and cloaking devices, a laptop that turns into a gun that turns into a different kind of gun. Spaceships, a camera drone, they clone the freaking president! You wouldn't do that today, but you might have done it in 2023 just to have a backup. This is the vision of 2023 we all wanted back in the year 2000, and yes, the cars hover, as does this drivable hoverbike. Perfect Dark is the spiritual successor to GoldenEye, and also an incredible game in its own right. Coming late in the Nintendo 64's life, this game was all about the impossible near future. Full voice acting, dynamic lighting, a high-resolution mode, Dolby surround sound, all at an amazing some frames per second.
Cute. Very cute.
Game reviews at the time talked about the choppy frame rate for sure, but gamers were a lot more forgiving in the N64 era. 15 FPS was common, and the occasional drop to 5 was fine.
This is fine.
In the context of its release, this game is hugely ambitious in a way that reinforces the game's central premise and setting. I opened the video by saying that games themselves were futuristic up until the arrival of the PlayStation 2. And I'd argue Perfect Dark is the last game to feel just like that. Perfect Dark released in June 2000, the PlayStation 2 released in November 2000. This marks the end of that strange early period of gaming before it hit the mainstream, when those of us who were into gaming knew in our bones that we were experiencing the medium of the future and the rest of the world was just about to wake up to it. Perfect Dark of course pushed the envelope in graphical terms, but also in the laundry list of features. Not only did you have a full-featured multiplayer with bots and multiple game modes, but you also had cooperative and counter-operative on the main campaign. Counter-operative is where one player plays as random enemies in the level, and it's awesome. At the time, this represented a glimpse of the future of gaming. Huge, movie-quality narrative experiences, and enough game modes and options that one single game purchase could keep you occupied for hundreds of hours before you'd seen everything. This was right at the beginning of AAA gaming as we know it today. I was on the internet in 1998 when this game was announced at E3, and I remember watching this trailer over and over again, in a much lower quality of course. Just the way the Nintendo 64N morphed into this crazy cyberpunk metal N blew my tiny little mind already, even before getting into the incredible gameplay footage. The hype for this game was unreal, and the released game more than lived up to it. We already loved GoldenEye, but it looked downright primitive compared to this trailer, which didn't even have the reload animations yet. From Pong to Perfect Dark, video games were the future. Now they're the now. And that's great, but I still get nostalgic for that feeling of being so up close and personal with a rapidly changing technology that was just on the cusp of going mainstream and changing the whole world for the better. So no, AI doesn't count. The excitement around gaming as a medium dissipated in the year 2000 right along with its exclusivity. But I'm glad more people are gaming. More people to game with is obviously better. And the wide range of games out there now means there really is something for everyone to enjoy. And more people having more access to ways to bring themselves joy and to connect with those around them is way better than what gaming used to be when it felt like the future. It's not contradictory to say that the present is better than the past, but that there are still parts of the past that we can look back on fondly. And I might be aging, but I feel incredibly lucky to have been born in 1984 and getting to watch the future evolve as I grew up alongside it. I'm exactly the age I want to be. Now, for the last 7 months, in every video, it has been my joy and my privilege to thank Ultramuffin for supporting the channel. And it was very funny having exactly one name scroll up the screen. Thank you to my channel members for supporting the channel. They are Ultramuffin. Thanks Ultramuffin. Ultramuffin, 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 Ultramuffin,
Ultramuffin.
Ultramuffin. Thanks to Ultramuffin for supporting the channel, but like all good things, that too must end. So thank you so much for your support to Liam, Soul in Sadness, and Ultramuffin. I really appreciate you. Much of the footage in this video was captured with a new scaler, which I could only afford because of your support. If you want to support the channel too to help it improve and grow, please consider becoming a member. And thanks everyone for exploring the retro future with me on the Retro Sofa. Take care of yourselves.